Okay, I'm going over the cash register homework that you use to demonstrate your understanding of aggregation. You're keeping a track of a list of retail items. We were given a retail item class that had instance fields, description, units on hand, and price. Constructors, several constructors, including one copy constructor. Set methods for setting the instance field. Get methods for getting the instance field. An equals method that returns a Boolean that checks if the descriptions of an item match. And then a toString method. Your job was to create a cash register class that has a list of items, of retail items, and I'm calling my list receipt. I also needed a constructor that defaults my list to being an empty string. I have methods to add an item, remove an item, methods to get the subtotal of the list, get tax and total, and then I added a toString method. This was not required. This is just a way for me to easily display all the items in the cash register and then the total. Okay, so I'm going to go to JGrasp. In here for cash register, I'm going to create my private array list of retail items. I'm going to call my list receipt. I'm then going to create a constructor, public cash register. I'll say receipt equals new array list of retail item. And I call that constructor there. Alright, so I have my receipt created. I need a way to add an item to my receipt, public void add item. I take a retail item as a parameter. I'm then going to add that to my receipt. Equals new. I'm at receipt.add, and I'm adding a new retail item, R. I'm using the copy constructor to create a new retail item. I'm copying the one that's passed as parameter, creating a new one, and then adding that new one to my receipt. I'm going to do public void remove item retail item. And what I need to do here is I need to look through the entire receipt and remove all items that have the same description. So I'm going to say for in I equals 0, I less than receipt dot size I plus plus. Only if the item on the current item on the receipt matches the retail item passed as parameter would I want to remove it. So if receipt dot get I dot equals R. So I'm using the retail items equals method there, and we'll compare the descriptions. If it equals R, then what I want to do, I want to say receipt dot get I, receipt dot remove I. And I also need to update the index pointer so that I'm adjusting the index pointer so that it will not skip over the next item that was the next item in the list. I'm going to public double get subtotal. And here I need to add all items in my list and return the sum of that. Double sum equals 0. For in I equals 0, I less than receipt dot size I plus plus to go through the entire list. I'm just going to add sum plus equals receipt dot get I dot price, dot get price. I think it's sometimes easier for me to create a temporary variable, so I'll demonstrate that. Retail item temp equals receipt dot get I. So I get one item off the list. Now I want to say a sum plus equals temp dot get price times temp dot get units on hand. Okay, sum plus equals temp dot get price times units on hand. And I usually like to put these in parentheses here to kind of group them all together, but you don't necessarily have to. After you do that, I return sum. Okay, so I have get sum, remove item, add item, my constructor. I compile it. Let's see if I don't have any errors. Oh, I'm doing my demo. Let me close that. Alright, so I compile. Alright, everything compiled okay. And now when I go to my demo, what I want to demo is that I have a retail item R, that's books. Retail R1 is an item with paper, and retail item 2 is an item with pencils. I create my cash register object called the constructor. I then add item 1, the first one, R to it, add R1 to it, which would be the paper, and then add R2 to it, which would be the pencils. I now can run this, and it says books, as I added first, paper, then pencils, and then I have a subtotal, and my tax is displayed. Okay, now let's see what happens if I have books that are twice. First set of books are 5 for $3, and next one are 10 for $10. I compile that, and I run it. It gives me books 5 at $3, books 10 at $10, and so forth, and it calculates the pay. Now, what if I remove an item? Register dot remove item R1. What happens here is that it's going to remove all items that are books. So it just looks just at the description. So it's going to remove both of those items and should result in only having the pencils being displayed at the end. So and then I do system.out.println cash register plus register. And I'm calling my toString method. Okay, so once again, I had to find a toString method in my cash register. I have not gone over that, but I'm calling it here, and I'm also calling the toString method here. Okay, and it will list all the items on the list and then their amounts. Compile and run. So first it has books 5 at $3, books 10 at $10, and books pencils 3 at $5. Then it'll print out pencils 3 at $5. So it went through and recalculated everything. Okay. So let's go back to my PowerPoint. I want to emphasize that you need to add a new retail item, not just simply add the item. You need to add a copy of the item. The reason why is that we don't know how the item information is collected. The demo may reuse the same object when gathering input. For example here, in my demo I may have said declared one retail item, and then I may read in the item each time, update the space, and add the new item to my register. For instance, read item may be a method that accepts a retail item, asks the user to enter in data, and when it returns, because I'm passing an object, it updates that R. So R here could be reused. The same memory cell can be reused to store the retail item. For instance, if I do it like this, R is the only memory cell that's created that will be used to store the retail item. So the first time I do books 110, $10. I add the address there. And then if I said, well, I do paper to $2, well, I've updated the data, but the address is still the same. And so when I add it to the list, it's adding the same address. The next time I send the retail item, it has pencils in it. I say add that address. And notice that all the addresses are the same. And when I print them out, it'll say pencils, pencils, pencils. What we want to do instead is have a new memory cell to store the data. So we take the data coming in as a parameter, we then make a copy of it, and then we store that address, DD1, into the array list. The next one comes in as paper 2, and I make a copy of that at a new location, and then I store that address in the list. And then finally I have pencils 3. I create a copy of pencils 3 inside of the cash register and store that. Now I have books, papers, and pencils. All of them are stored and I can access them. To remove an item from the list, I want to emphasize that you must adjust the index so you will not skip to the next item. So after checking to see if it's equal to the item, then you need to adjust the index. Let's see what happens. We'll say that we have books, and pencils stored in our receipt. And I say I want to remove items with the same description. I want to remove all books. So both of those should be removed. When you remove the first one, what actually happens is that memory cell has been removed from the list, and the other two move up. So when we removed item 0, the other two moved up. So the one that was originally in position 1 is now moved to position 2, and the one that's in position 2 is now moved up to position 1. When I remove the next book, what happens here is that at position 0 is pencils, and there's no position 1. So what happens is that whenever you delete an item from the list, the others move up in index. And so now it'll display pencils. Okay, thanks.